On the next Roseanne show, Charlton Heston channels his old friend Moses.
I do the will of the Lord God Almighty, woman.
And I'm so psyched because my first guest is so awesome. He is best known for his role in leading the Israelites from slavery in Egypt 3,000 years ago and delivering the 10 Commandments from Mount Sinai. Please help me welcome Moses.
Who is on the Lord's side, let him come to me.
Sit down. I'm on the Lord's side, Moses.
I know that.
I try. Can I ask you a question, though? When you first saw that burning bush and heard the voice of God, were you sober?
I was frightened.
You were frightened. Well, of course, I think anybody rational would be
Yes,
frightened.
of course.
Did you believe that you had been chosen?
I found it hard to believe. God is a hard taskmaster to follow.
Absolutely. Did you trust when you went up to the edge of the Red Sea there that it would actually part?
I knew it would part. I had practiced.
You had practiced parting it before?
It is wise to be prepared, my child.
Which commandment, Moses, do these people break the most?
All.
I'm such a fan of yours. I'm such a fan of yours. Thank you so much. It was awesome. Mr. Moses. What a great actor you are.
Thank you.
You're such a fantastic actor. And you got to play, like, the pinnacle of roles that anybody's ever got to play.
Well, I've been very lucky. I like to play historical parts. I guess I've done more of them than most
Anybody.
actors.
Absolutely.
And they're the best parts. They're interesting men. They're more complicated than the rest of us. And most interestingly enough, most of them have rather meager private lives. They're so busy driving the Moors out of Spain or painting the Sistine ceiling or,
Right. Oh, that,
or
well, you were so brilliant in that.
becoming president or king or tyrant. Tyrants are good. I played Genghis Khan once. That's very interesting, man, truly.
So why do you think they have meager lives?
Because they're so busy doing these other things. Their private life, their family life tends to be a little small. Except for one exception. Andrew Jackson had a lifelong love affair with his wife, who died just 3 days before he was inaugurated as president. But he had the kind of, he was passionately in love with her.
Well, when you were talking about how they had meager family and personal lives, these great men of history, of course I wanted to go right then and ask you your opinion of the whole Clinton. Because thank God you came on the show, Mr. Heston, because I cannot find a conservative in this town for the life of me.
There are three of us. There's Arnold Schwarzenegger and Clint Eastwood.
Oh, Clint Eastwood's a conservative.
And of course, we meet openly, you know, have lunch in restaurants, and nobody interferes with us. It's just like real people.
But, you know, give us your take on the whole Clinton. Because you said that you thought it kind of reminds you of the Wizard of Oz.
Well, in a certain sense, you know, and it's hard to sort out, but it seems, and seemed even before this last 9 months, my word, as though you could find, you know, people in the White House Now, I don't know exactly which one is the Tin Woodman who has no heart, and which one is the Scarecrow who has no brains, and which one is the Cowardly Lion who has no guts. But we're pretty certain that we know who the Wizard of Oz is, because he's hiding in the Oval Office there.
Are you scared, though?
Truly?
Do you think as American people should be afraid?
No, I think this is a great country. Truly, that's a throwaway to say a great country,
Right.
but it truly is.
And you think we'll survive it?
I think we will. What Lincoln called man's last best hope on earth. And we are the only true democracy. And I think we will survive. Those wise old guys that invented the country knew what they were about. Right. And I think we have the firmest foundation of a government. We're going through a very bad time now. It must be a miserable time for the president.
Right.
And obviously he is permanently identified in history in
Right.
connection with these last 8 months.
Right.
But
We'll get
the
past
people
it.
will get past it, the country will get past it.
We're going to take a commercial and come back and talk about that. So we're back with Charlton Heston, who's such an idol of mine, because you're such a brave person, because this is such a bastion of liberal thought here in Beverly Hills. And you, Hollywood, you stand alone, and that would be very difficult, I would imagine.
Well, of course, when I first came out, I worked for Adlai Stevenson and Jack Kennedy.
Oh.
But
So you were a Democrat?
I wasn't a registered Democrat, but I was on that position. And people say, what made you change your mind? I say, I didn't change. The Democratic Party moved sharply to the left right out from under me. And they never asked me either.
They never asked you if they had permission to move?
They didn't ask permission. They just went.
And do you feel like the Republican or the Conservative Party moved to the middle to compensate for that?
I think that's probably true. Yes, I think so. But for instance, Jack Kennedy, reincarnated today, could never be nominated by the Democratic Party. His position on the military, his position on foreign affairs, his position on taxes was entirely at odds with the Democratic Party's position today. But
how come you never ran for office?
I've been president of the United States 3 times, Roseanne. You knew that, didn't you, you guys? There, see, they knew that.
Because I can pretty much imagine you being right in there with the whole, well, like I said, framing the whole conservative shift. You're one of the people who did that.
Well, I am active and have been, I think, in the very beginning. I'm first president of the Screen Actors Guild, which I was for longer than anyone. Then I was, and I boast about this shamelessly because it means a lot to me, I was the first actor in Hollywood to take an active stand with Dr. Martin Luther King. This was in 1961, early in 61.
What was he like? What was he like?
A marvelous man. He was a dynamo of energy. When I was running the Guild, he wanted to have breakfast with me, and so we had toast and coffee. And he said, Mr. Heston, is it true that the technical unions will not accept black members? And I said, Dr. King, not only couldn't you get into that guild, I couldn't get into it. No one except who's not a son of a member can get in. And he said, that's terrible. I said, I know that, sir. And he said, I'd like to talk to those gentlemen. And I said, well, I can get you an appointment with the head of the Teamsters, of the YATSE, but I don't think you'll get very far. I was wrong. He bullied them into, they were practically groveling by the end of the meeting. And from then on, it's been an open union, as it should have been from the beginning. But even then, when I was the head of the Actors Committee on the March on Washington with Dr. King in 64. And
Wow, that's incredible.
people called me up in the studio and said, now, Chuck, you know, you don't want to get into this. This is a very controversial issue. Just stay out of it, for gosh sakes. What do you want to... And I said, you mean you think Ben-Hur's been in the theaters over a year already? You think they're not going to go see the chariot race again because I'm marching with Dr. King? And we, of course, we went, and it was a great affair. It was one of the...
I can't imagine that you would be so brave as to put yourself in that much of a vulnerable position here. People forget that we have freedom of speech. We have the right to disagree.
Absolutely.
And if we don't exercise it, we'll lose it.
That's exactly what I said to Ed Asner once. We were in a debate, and Ed gets off, he blows off pretty easily. And,
Wait.
and,
He just like...
and I said, Ed, wait a minute. You know, we live in a country where we get to disagree.
Right.
He said, yeah, I don't care about it. And I said, well, then we have nothing to talk about.
I think that's so true. That's like the place we are right now in our country.
Yes.
Everyone's afraid to disagree. And you know what? They think that we have to go to commercial, but
Yeah.
so I have to have the last word here.
Yeah,
Mr.
absolutely. I'm with you, kid.
But they're so afraid that disagreement means armed struggle in like 2 seconds, and it doesn't mean that, does it? We're going to go to a commercial and come back and talk more with Charlton Heston.
Just make sure you stay in the chariot, Chuck. I guarantee you're going to win the dang race. That's good. True story.
You are so special. That chariot thing you did and the water stuff. I love you, man.
You're not getting my Bud Light. Frankly, son, you frighten me.
For the great taste that won't fill you up and never let you down, make it a Bud Light.
And it's more like, I love you, man. See?
This is a whole book of you and the roles you've played.
Yes, just about every role is in there. It's most of my career. It's my current book, Charlton Heston's
how many
Hollywood.
different things you've done and different ways you've
Yeah.
looked. We're so overwhelmed with what a great actor you are and what great roles you've played. We forget you're such a part of everything in America. And you even have like your own,
My own sketches. That's the first time I've ever put any of those in. And if any of you have ever read any of my books, this is my 6th book. There you are. There you are. Okay, good.
You draw good.
Thank you.
Is there anything you can't do?
I can't dance. What can I tell you? I can't dance.
That's it?
That's it.
I bet that is it. How many years have you been married?
Going on 54.
I want to know how you...
Well, there are 2 things.
How did you happen to make it last
You
that
gotta
long?
you got to pick the right girl.
Right.
And secondly, you guys listen to this. You must
This
remember.
is for the men?
Yeah.
Okay.
You must remember those 3 little words. I was wrong. Right? Doesn't that help? Yeah, he knows. And when we were celebrating it, of course, that's a rare thing in this town. And so we were on
Yeah.
all the talk shows. And
Right.
one of the talk show hostesses leaned over to Lydia and said, now, Lydia, just between you and me, did you never even briefly consider divorce? And Lydia said, divorce? Never. Murder often.
54 years. Congratulations. So amazing.
Yeah.
Before we go, though, before we run out of time, I want to ask you about being president of the NRA.
I'm very proud of that. We have a very good program going that started in Richmond, which had a terrible crime rate, terrible murder rate. And the district attorney there instituted a plan where instead of just booking them and sending them out the other door, putting them in jail for 2 weeks, really prosecuting them. And it dropped the murder rate by 65%. And I got the mayor of Philadelphia to agree to let us try that in Philadelphia. And I really predict the leadership of both houses of Congress has funded it to begin the beginning of the program. And if we can make that spread across the country, that'll be the most important thing I've ever done for my country in my life.
What, to like... To make sure that people who break the law, is that what you're saying, are
Yes.
prosecuted to the full extent of the law?
And imprisoned. Hard jail. If you commit any crime with a weapon, even if you're not committing the crime then, if you're caught, if you are a felon, convicted felon, and you're caught carrying a weapon, that's 5 years right there. And if you commit a crime, if you're caught with drugs, that's 15 years for each count. And this is the solution to crime, not taking their guns away. Criminals don't buy guns anyway. They steal them. That's what they do for a living, for Pete's sakes. Anybody knows that.
So, you know, because there's the big debate, and I hear it all the time here about, you know, people are like actually moving for gun control. So I wanted your opinion on that.
Well, I remember a few years ago at the riots, which is a terrible thing, of course, for all of us. And 3 friends of mine at different times, but within about a 10-hour period when it was at its height, called me up, and the dialogue was the same every time. They say, Chuck, you have guns, don't you? And I say, yeah, I do. And they said, shotguns and like that? And I said, yep, shotguns. And they said, could you loan me one? It's getting pretty scary out here. I says, it does that sometimes. I said, do you know how to shoot a shotgun? They said, no, I thought you could teach me. And I said, I can't do it in half an hour. You'll shoot your foot off. I said, the Marines are coming up from Pendleton. That'll be the end of it. Then go through get a shotgun. They said, well, they have this waiting period. I said, yeah, you voted for that, didn't you? And they said, yeah. And I said, go through the waiting period. Get a gun, get some proper instruction, and then you won't be afraid when this happens again.
Well, you also said that you thought there were more closeted gun owners in Hollywood than gays.
Oh, no question. Or more conservatives in the Hollywood closet than there are homosexuals. And that tells you something, too.
Well, I'm from Utah, so we always had guns, you know.
Yeah, well, this, of course.
We had horses and guns. It's the West.
It's, you know, they don't bother people driving cars. Cars kill about 3 times as many people as firearms do, and
So
cars are not protected. And
alcohol kills a lot of people.
Yes, indeed.
Why are they wanting to regulate guns?
I don't know. I don't think it's the real country. The beltway between Washington and New York and Los Angeles and San Francisco is not the country. Right. They think it is. The country is all the rest of the country. That's where the people really live. That's where the country thrives. That's the meaning of the country. And it's, we have to, also the Bill of Rights is a unique document. There is no country in the world, ever has been, that has a document like the Bill of Rights. Every one of its 12 amendments, including the First Amendment, which is the right of free speech, and the Second Amendment, which is the right to keep and carry arms. And that is...
But what about like assault weapons and stuff like that these kids get a hold of and they go to the schoolyard? What about that?
I think, I hate those weapons. As a matter of fact, fully automatic weapons have been sharply regulated, very heavily regulated, since the mid-30s, when among the group that drew up that legislation was the National Rifle Association. And the right...
Well, how do these kids get a hold of them? I mean, what's the deal?
The kid in Oregon stole his from his grandfather out of a locked closet. The problem there is not with those kids. There was a new shooting just recently. The problem with those kids is improper parental control. You know, you can't just if you have a son or a daughter, you have a responsibility to bring them up into being decent citizens. And
what about people who shirk that responsibility, though?
Then they should be held responsible. They themselves, the parents.
Do you think the parents should be prosecuted?
I think so, yes.
I kind of agree with you, too.
Yes, I think...
everybody wants to shirk like all kinds of responsibility and blame other things.
You have just put your... Nobody, we live now in a country where nobody is responsible for anything.
Right.
You know, it's not my fault. No, it was he did it. Did you see the sentencing on that kid?
Oh, that guy? Yeah, he blamed his...
blamed everybody you could think of.
Else.
He blamed the other kid. He blamed the father of
He's talking about Jeremy Strohmeyer.
Yeah, Strohmeyer.
Yeah, it was
He blamed the father of the girl he killed. He blamed his pal. blamed everybody but himself. He says, I'm not a killer. I'm not a pedophile.
No, I just made a little tiny mistake.
I made a mistake, and I'm sorry for it. I'm very sorry for it.
It's frightening. It's frightening.
Very scary.
People need to wake up.
We still are the best country there is.
We still are, definitely. But we need to wake up. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for everything you said. Thank you for all the great moments of entertainment you've given
Bless
all
your
of
heart.
us.
Call me back again.
Oh, please come back.
Okay.
Charlton Heston, ladies and gentlemen.